The focus of this video will be on Google and cloud computing. Our plan will consist of three distinctive parts. First of all, we'll have a look at Google and its business model, how it all started, its developments and acquisitions, revenues and profits, PLC curve, positioning map, BCG matrix, and its SWOT analysis. Then we'll look at cloud computing. What is cloud computing? Its definition given by Salesforce.com, the different forms of cloud computing and levels within the cloud. Then an example of Google will be investigated because Google is a pioneer in the cloud. Finally, we'll have a look at cloud computing as a technological innovation. Should we follow it or rather avoid it? We'll look into its advantages, disadvantages and criticisms, but also what Google should do next.
Cloud computing, also referred to as IT in the cloud, has been an economic revolution within the IT world. This innovation has allowed the possibility to launch a service without the need for expenditure in hardware. The use of this technology has created countless opportunities for small rising startups without much consequential financial means. As mentioned in an article by The Express, it is about getting economies of scale which have economic consequences. For example, computing resources that are not used by French companies at night are used by other companies at the other side of the world. All in all, cloud computing has become very quickly a strong component for users of information systems. Google is an American public corporation located in the Silicon Valley in California. It has become a master in incorporating cloud computing into its dominant strategy. The company is mostly known for its famous web search engine, which indexes web pages, images, videos, and articles, and earns its revenue from advertisements in relation to internet services. In addition to the search engine, the company is also specialized in email, online mapping, office productivity, social networking, video sharing, web browsing, and its numerous technological products available in the market. The name Google originated from a misspelling of the word goggle, which refers to the number 1, followed by 100 zeros. This misspelt word has become one of the world's most known and successful companies managed by CEO Eric Schmidt. Today it can be said Google is no less than a superpower.
Let's now consider Google and its business model. First, how it all started. Nowadays, everybody heard of Google mostly because it is the search engine that they most know of, but mainly because of the successful strategy of the company. Google's goal is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. Google began in January 1996 as a research project named Backrub, which concerned search engines. The two founders, Larry Page and Sergey Brin, met at Stanford University during their studies. They wanted to create a software capable of analyzing relations between websites. The two students needed money at the time to develop the Google project. They met David Fowler, founder of Yahoo, who convinced them not to sell the company, and the founder of Sun Microsystems, who provided them with $100,000 to develop the firm. They then succeeded in reuniting $1 million and launched Google Inc. in September 1998 in a small garage of the Silicon Valley. By February 1999, Google was managing 500,000 requests per day. The same year, the newspaper Le Monde pretended that Google is a challenger for Alta Vista, an older search engine. In June 2000, Google became the world's first search engine and referenced 500 million web pages. In 2001, Eric Schmidt is summoned to be CEO of the company, which is located in California in a place called Googleplex. Today, 82% of Americans are using Google as the main search engine.
The company specializes in finding small companies considered promising and that may be enhanced by synergies with its operations. In 2001, Google launched Google Catalogs. They bought Deja News for $5 million and renamed it Google Groups. In 2002, Google Labs, a lab for services and computer applications, was founded. In the same time, Frugal, an online purchase service, was created. In 2004, Google dominated the internet economy and established partnerships with Yahoo, AOL, and CNN. In the same year, Gmail and Google Desktop Search were created. Further, Blogger, a blog host, and Picasa, a picture management software, are redeemed and integrated to Google. Later on in 2004, Keyhole, a company specialized in mapping, was bought with Zipdash, a traffic management firm, to create Google Maps. In October 2006, Google bought YouTube for $1.65 billion, its biggest operation, and today YouTube operates in 61 different countries and 61 different languages. Further, over 6 billion hours of video are watched each month on YouTube. That's almost an hour for every person on Earth, and astonishingly, 100 hours of videos are uploaded every minute. In the meantime, Rightly, a company specialized in online text editing, is taking over also for $8 million. In 2007, Google bought Android, an OS for smartphones, and launched iGoogle, a personal Google for each smartphone. Recently, Google developed a web browser, Google Chrome, and has delivered its own operating system, Google Chrome OS.
We now look at Google's financial status. Google's IPO came out on 19th August 2004, where 19,605,052 shares were offered at a price of $85 per share. Today, this has increased to 336.05 million shares, with a market cap of $408.10 billion and enterprise value of $357.32 billion as of March 10, 2014. The current EPS of Google share is $36.05. The founders of Google, Larry Page and Sergey Brin, own 16% of the company shares. Companies like Yahoo, AOL, a subsidiary of Time Warner, also hold a small stake in the company. We now look at Google's share price from when its IPO came out to March 3, 2014. On August 19th, 2004, its share price was $106.15, and as we can see from the graph, it has grown and has a few dips all over the years to March 3rd, 2014, where the share price was $1,214.74. Google in 2013. It has gross revenues of $59.82 billion, 84% of which come from adverts on the Google sites and the rest from other sources like license for software. It has an operating income of $13.96 billion, profit of $12.92 billion. It has 47,756 employees, total assets of $110.92 billion, and total equity of $87.30 billion. We now see the growth of Google from 1999 to 2013. As we can see from the graph, there has been a constant growth year on year, and that it had become profitable enough to cover its expenses in 2001, just 2 years after its creation. 49% of the profits are made in US, 14% in the UK, and 37% in other countries.
So let's consider Google's product life cycle curve. The product life cycle curve describes the stages a really new product or service goes through from the beginning to the end. Here, in the market introduction, Google's search engine was first introduced. Google's profits were this time negative. They were about minus $6.5 million in 1999. Then, the number of Google users increased to reach its market maturity, in which the number of Google users was the most important. In 2005, Google's profits were about more than $2,000 million. Let's now have a look at Google's BCG matrix. Major players in the market tend to be more profitable than their competitors. The BCG matrix, which stands for the Boston Consulting Group matrix, has reinforced this concept. The question mark position shows that the members of the Google team ask themselves if they should keep their new search engine service on the market. If the answer is positive, they invest, so we are in the star position. So they invest in the service and then they make a lot of profits. We are then on the cow position, a cow because it produces milk and gives cash here. When the new service does not work well in the market, then we are in the dog position, and it means we must withdraw the product or the service, or we just liquidate it. Here, Google is on the cash cow position. Cow means low growth and high market share. Let's now consider Google's positioning map. We can position Google on the search engine market. Here, search engines are mapped together to be more easily compared to each other. Google search engine has a high quality with a quick speed and a nice presentation, but also a large number of users, whilst Bing search engine has a high quality and a significant number of users. Finally, Yahoo search engine has a medium quality and a low number of users.
When talking about Google's positioning strategy, Eric Schmidt declared in 2005 that they don't do the same thing as everyone else, and their strategies are not predictable. They look at markets as they exist and they assume they are pretty well served by the existing players. Google in general tries to see new problems and new markets using the technology that others use and they build. This greatly justifies Google's premium position on the search engine market.
Now let's consider the SWOT analysis for Google. Strengths. Google is an innovative company with the development of new software products such as Google Talk, Google Earth, Picasa, and Web Accelerator. Google dominates the market for search-related advertising. Moreover, search-related ads are the fastest growing sector of the online ad business, which is growing at 41% annually. Google has some strong corporate values, like Google's statement of philosophy and the 10 golden rules. Google has almost twice as many ads clicked compared to Yahoo. In December 2008, Google had 16.5 trillion ads clicked compared with Yahoo's 9 trillion, according to Net Ratings. Google earned $3.64 billion from US online ad revenues in 2005, representing 69% of all paid search advertising, according to eMarketer. Google possesses important advertising services with the new cost-per-click method that maximizes Google's revenue. Weaknesses. One of Google's weaknesses is click fraud. This is when companies click on a competitor's paid listings to raise their rivals' marketing expenses. Between 10 and 50% of ad clicks are said to be fraudulent. Google has an only Anglo-Saxon English language focus. Google is too dependent on search-based advertising. 99% of its revenue come from search-related advertising. The remaining 1% comes from sales of its enterprise search appliance. Opportunities. Google could reach new user groups by challenging companies such as Microsoft and developing alternatives to Word and Windows. Google could also develop a payment service for collecting revenue from paid listing providers. Another opportunity could be for Google to extend its role in e-commerce. Furthermore, Google could also do radio advertising. Threats. There is a lot of competition on the search engine market. We can create a few examples like Yahoo, Microsoft, and Bing. Moreover, Google is getting a lot of enemies by competing with some software products that are produced by some other firms in the search engine web market.
Let's now investigate a certain domain of IT, that is cloud computing.
What is cloud computing? The Standard National Institute of Technology defines such technological development as a model for enabling convenient, on-demand network access to a shared pool of configurable computing resources. For example, networks, servers, storage, applications, and services that can be rapidly provisioned and released with minimal management effort or service provider interaction. This new innovation aims to facilitate the information management of companies, but is also dedicated to the general public. Its principle is simple but revolutionary. This technology aims at deporting IT processes on remote servers, normally located on local servers or on the user's computer. From now on, users and companies do not need to manage their own servers anymore. Instead, numerous online services can be reached, making companies free to cease managing complex underlying infrastructure. This is where the notion of cloud space comes from. Computing is dematerialized because applications and exploited data are no longer located on local computers. Cloud computing is thus based on a multitude of interconnected remote servers. Any use of services based on the cloud technology is made with much more ease and efficiency, and this is done through a web browser.
We will now watch a video about the definition of cloud computing by Salesforce.com.
You have big ideas to streamline your business and drive sales through the roof. But to get there, your ideas need business apps. And business apps have always been too expensive, especially in times like these. Behind each one is a world of complexity. They need a data center with office space, power, cooling, bandwidth, networks, servers, and storage. A complicated software stack, and a team of experts to install, configure, and run them. You need development, testing, staging, production, and failover environments. And when there's a problem, good luck. You call technical support, and they don't know, so they blame someone else. Oh, and when new versions come out, you would upgrade, but that might bring the whole system down. Now, this is for one app. When you multiply these headaches across dozens or hundreds of apps, it's easy to see why the biggest companies with the best IT departments aren't getting the apps they need. Small businesses don't have a chance. Cloud computing is a better way to run your business. Instead of running your apps yourself, they run on a shared data center. You just plug in, like a utility. This makes it fast to get started and it costs less. It's like Gmail compared to Microsoft Exchange. With Gmail, do you need servers and storage? No. Do you need a technical team to keep it up and running? No. Do you have to do upgrades? No. When you use any app that runs in the cloud, you just log in, customize it, and start using it. That's the power of cloud computing. This model is so much better, it's changing the way we think about software. Not just for consumer apps, it's also being used for business apps. We call this enterprise cloud computing. Businesses are running all kinds of apps in the cloud these days, including custom-built apps. Why? Because you can be up and running in a few days, which is unheard of with traditional business software. They cost less because you don't need to pay for all the people, products, and facilities to run them. And it turns out they're more scalable, more secure, and are more reliable than the vast majority of apps out there. Here's why. They're based on an architecture called multi-tenancy. With a multi-tenant app, there isn't a copy of the app for each business that's using it. It's one app that everyone shares. But it's flexible enough for everyone to customize for their specific needs. It's like a giant office building where everyone shares the infrastructure and services, like security, yet each business can customize their own office space. This means apps are elastic. They can scale up to tens of thousands of users or down to only a few. Upgrades are taken care of for you, so your apps get security and performance enhancements and new features automatically. Now, the way you pay for cloud apps is also different. Forget about buying servers and software. When your apps run in the cloud, you don't buy anything at all. It's all rolled up into a predictable monthly subscription, so you only pay for what you use. Finally, cloud apps don't eat up your valuable IT resources, so your CFO will love it. And you can focus on projects that really impact the business, like deploying more apps. Cloud computing is a simple idea, but it can have a huge impact on your bottom line.
Cloud computing was created particularly to answer quality requirements of various services. Its aim is to establish the most successful service between the supplier and the end customer. This technology articulates itself around the following three levels: the application, in touch with the customer; the platform, this executes the application; the infrastructure, the platform support. There are three forms of cloud computing at a corporate level: internal private clouds that are internally managed by a company for its own needs; external private clouds dedicated to the needs of a company whose management is externalized at a service provider; public clouds managed by specialized companies which rent their services to multiple firms. The cloud transformation process thus passes through the flexibility of three distinctive levels: software as a service, where the customer uses the provider's applications running on a cloud infrastructure. The applications are accessible from various client devices through either a thin client interface such as a web browser, example web-based email, or a program interface. Platform as a service, where the consumer deploys onto the cloud infrastructure consumer-created acquired applications created using programming. Infrastructure as a service, the consumer is provided with provision, processing, storage, networks, and other fundamental computing resources. The consumer does not manage or control the underlying cloud infrastructure, but has control over operating systems and storage.
Google, pioneer of computing in the cloud, with the e-commerce online digital book giant Amazon, quickly adapted themselves to use of these technologies. Indeed, Google marketed numerous products based on the cloud principle. We can mention Google Apps, Google Chrome, without forgetting Gmail, which surpasses all other email inboxes in the world, due to its speed of execution and its considerable storage capacity. Furthermore, Google launched a new technology, CloudPrint, available on mobile devices. This software is provided with a feature allowing people to print a document on Google Docs just by clicking on the print button. It is nevertheless necessary for good progress of the application to possess a PC running under Windows and using the Google Chrome browser whilst being connected to the printer.
A technological innovation to follow, or rather avoid. Cloud computing came with its own strengths and weaknesses. The advantages of the cloud system are namely the optimization of costs with regard to conventional systems, the development of applications without renting your own calculation machines at a cost, the possible realization of 20 to 25% of savings for governments if this type of technology were to be used, reliable services of very good quality based on successful infrastructures. The disadvantages of the cloud system include the problem of the ecological impact of the cloud on the IT, denounced sector by the NGO Greenpeace in 2010. The bad security of access to the applications between the customer and the remote server. The loss of control of companies when confronted with the implementation of their data. Finally, criticisms were also made in particular by Richard Stallman, who considers that the cloud is a trap due to the way the users lose control of their video applications. Google and its challenges. Google did not only create a search engine on the internet, but also launched some new products such as Gmail, a free email service, Google Desktop, Google Maps, Google Book Search, Google Talk for instant messaging, and many others. The problem is that these innovations move the company further into the domain of portals like Yahoo and Microsoft's MSN. Moreover, Google wanted to target e-commerce giants like eBay and Amazon. As a result, Microsoft was threatened by Google, which was developing instant messaging and some software such as Google Desktop and a sort of improved OpenOffice. As a consequence, Microsoft responded by developing search-related advertising with AOL. Google was getting more and more enemies and everything seemed like a challenge. John Battle even said, "This is Google's first test as a chess player in a major corporate battle. But what moves should Google make next?"
So, what should Google do next? Stay focused on the company's goal and competencies, which is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. Develop better search solutions and new software products, because technology is always being improved. Monetize these solutions with targeted advertising to get more profits. Become a portal like Yahoo, MSN, or AOL, which are the three most famous portals. Extend its role in e-commerce because 70% of e-commerce transactions originate from a web search. 40% of web searches have a commercial motivation, which is a non-negligible fact. Challenge Microsoft's hegemony by developing products that can compete with OpenOffice and Windows.
To conclude, Google is a really successful corporation. It has to keep developing itself to stay on the market for such services on the web. According to Eric Schmidt, it will take current estimate 300 years to organize all the world's information. As a consequence, the goal of Google should be to stay 284 more years in the market to achieve its aim. Some people speak about revolution, whilst others think of it as locust computing. In any case, the cloud technology remains an interesting option for the future, because it allows, through an internet access, to supply infrastructure, software development, while guaranteeing a cost cut. Some people see it as an opportunity, others as a trap. It remains, however, certain that cloud computing has a long way to go before being adopted by all. Finally, it is worth facing the fact that if cloud computing is going to contribute to freeing companies' investments, there will also be severe issues risen in the process. On this matter, Julie Denet, journalist from Le Figaro, declared, "These groups, all Americans, do not possess data centers in France. Companies will accept that their data are hosted in Ireland, Netherlands or Belgium. But will this cheap computing technology need battalions of actively working technicians and engineers within companies? A cloud goes by." Thank you for watching.
It's a game played by